I've got from Ted Lasso right here on the Rich Eisen Show, the man who plays Coach Beard, none other than Brendan Hunt. Again, this show is a beautiful show, man. It is an absolutely beautiful show, and I'd love to dive in to how you created the Ted Lasso character. I know it came from an NBC Sports just one-off, right? Pretty much as a promotional character, correct?
Yeah. Jason, I think, was contractually obligated as a SNL cast member to do some kind of promo for NBC at some point. Right. And then NBC Sports bought the rights to the Premier League, and they wanted to make a big splash. This was going to be, easily the largest network that's a big European soccer league had ever been on. Right. And this ad agency came to Jason and said, hey, here's like 3 different ideas of kind of like a coach thing. Like a coach could do this, or a coach could do this, or a coach could do that. And Jason's like, Well, this one where he coaches a Premier League team, but he doesn't know anything about it, I'm going to twist that around a little bit, but we're going to do that. And I'm going to bring in my buddy Joe, being Joe Kelly, and my buddy Brendan. And last meeting. And they were like, oh, okay. Oh, great, you're done? And then we went over to England and we basically just riffed it for a few days, which, I mean, they hired a professional crew of professional people who are used to having a script every day. And we never had even the tiniest thought of furnishing one of those.
For the promotional shoot you're talking about.
Yeah.
Right.
And we just had the biggest blast doing it, and it turned out, pretty well. And they had us come back the next year, and from these strange origins, now here I am sitting with you.
So when did the idea of a show exist off of this character?
After
when did that happen?
The second round of commercials we did in 2014. Yeah. At that point, the 3 of us had an awareness that Jason sort of verbalized first of this is fun. This is particularly fun. This character is fun. The 3 of us getting to hang together, making this thing is fun. We'd all work together in different capacities, but never the 3 of us, me and Jason and Joe. And, we weren't sure if it was going to be like another commercial or a movie or a TV show. And we eventually settled on, well, let's go to Jason. We went to Jason's for a week in Brooklyn in 2015. And we banged out an arc structure for a couple of seasons and a special. The same model as the original UK Office. Sure. Yes. And it was fairly typical of English shows at the time. And, we were thinking of it always as well, we'll do an English version of this because that's kind of the hook. And we'll honor, the English comedies we love so much as much as we can. So 6 episodes, special. And we always saw it as kind of those 3 parts. And then we wrote a full pilot. And then nothing happened for 4 years. And
4 years?
Yeah. Well, Jason kept having babies. Jason and Joe, their careers were going great. I was, baking on a rock. Still waiting tables at a club.
What club?
It was called Supper Club. It was a LA offshoot of a Amsterdam institution.
Mm-hmm. How were you as a waiter? Were you good?
Poor. I'm a horrible waiter. I'm a great waiter if you're one of those people who's like, I'm going to talk to this waiter and we're going to connect.
But the actual nuts and bolts of waitering.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Not so good.
Yeah. I mean, I was doing my gosh honest best, but
Got it.
I definitely was a guy who would come back to the table to hear I said a Cosmo. Oh, Cosmo. Yeesh, that's an orange juice. I apologize. I'll be right
back. Okay, I don't mean to digress. So 4 years goes by, and then you get a call saying, "Let's do this thing."
Yeah. Finally, in kind of a typical Jason way. So Jason has this. He has a couple charity events he does in KC every year, but the
Big Slick,
yes. And then one called Thunder Gong, which is more rock based and is for Steps of Faith Foundation, and it helps get prosthetic limbs to people who can't afford them and who also need them. They don't just have them as a hobby.
Right. Yes.
And we did the first one. It was a blast. We'd been together for a whole weekend at this point, and then we're at LAX. We're getting our bags and baggage claim. We hug goodbye, and then the last footnote. He goes, "Oh, real quick, all that stuff we wrote up for the show, for the Lasso show, is that?" And by the way, at this point, I'd officially given up. I was like, "That's never happening again. It is unhealthy for me to keep thinking about this Ted Lasso thing."
Right.
But he goes, "Yeah, that Ted Lasso thing. Does that still exist online anywhere?" Which is another way of saying, "Hey, I don't know how Google Docs work. Can you explain Google Docs to me?" But I was like, yeah, Jason, it's still online somewhere. And oh, great, because I'm having lunch with Bill Lawrence tomorrow, and Bill Lawrence being the TV mogul behind such
Scrubs
institutions as Scrubs and Spin City and Cougar Town. And
now Shrinking. Which is also on Apple TV Plus.
Yeah, with our good friend Brett Goldstein, aka Roy Kent. Roy Kent. Anyway, once that lunch with Bill Lawrence happened, things moved very, very quickly.
And boom.
Now we're here.
And I know. I'm not ready to get to the here part yet because to me it is amazing, how the show blossomed, and I'm just wondering where did the idea of where did the humanity of this come from? Because again, this is not a sports show. Okay, it is a show about a sports team, and it's about coaches, and then there is some competition scenes in it and what have you.
Yeah,
that's not what this is. This is a different show about relationships, about obviously mental health and mental awareness and things of that nature. Where did that DNA come from?
Yeah, Brandon Hunt? We always knew it was going to be a workplace ensemble comedy that happened to take place in the world of soccer.
Yes.
And as we were making this, and I'll try not to get too political here, but as we were making it, we were in the throes of Trump time. We were a couple years in, and the main way I was thinking about that was like, how does this era affect how people think of Americans?
Mm-hmm.
And like I lived in Amsterdam for 5 years, and like a go-to of the comedy we were doing there was like playing on European stereotypes of Americans and back and forth.
Uh-huh.
And like, yeah, this guy right now running his mouth on our behalf, I don't think is what we are actually like. And none of us thought that, and like if nothing else, the discourse was being poisoned. And so we just had this notion that had begun with the second commercial, really, that Ted is a guy who is, he's Midwestern, and he cares about people, and he's curious about people, and he does not judge people at first go. And as opposed to being someone who is, who thinks, it's the hope that kills you, he thinks, do you believe in miracles? We wanted to, on some level, restore, even if it's a myth, what we think, sort of the best part of being American is, and what's different about America vis-a-vis the rest of the world.
Right. And was there an awareness at the time as you're creating this that there was kind of a major league vibe to it, with the female owner of the team trying to jettison the team's hopes of being successful for her own personal reasons?
100%. Yeah. We drew from many sports movies of our youth, and Major League was a great starting off point, because in Major League, that character, she's just evil. Like, she just wants the team to tank.
Right.
But then, we in the writers' room, and there's 4 women out of 10 writers in our writers' room. They're like, okay, but why is she like that? There has to be a reason.
Yes.
And once you start getting into the why, well, that opens up a whole thing for us of, we're going to bring in lots of sports movie sort of archetypes and maybe even tropes in here, but we can go deeper in each of them. Go deeper in the pretty boy, punk superstar, go deeper in the aging legend. Find out the why instead of the what, and then the whole world and every character becomes richer, and therefore hopefully the comedy does too.
So Roy Kent is the Tom Berenger character of this, if we're just continuing the connective tissue?
No, Roy Kent is Crash Davis.
Roy Kent is
really
Crash
where we're
Davis.
at.
You're going there Bull Durham on me on that.
Yeah.
The Roy Kent character, I've got Brendan Hunt here on the Rich Eisen Show, played by Brett Goldstein, is one of my favorite characters. And I'm not saying this because you're here and you're part of birthing it, and it's truly one of our favorite characters. I include everybody here, ever created, and I truly mean that. I just think everything out of his mouth is hilarious or poignant, and there's hardly anything in between. And how did you get hooked up with Brett? And is this all him? Is that all him? Roy Kent? Is that all?
He's a big chunk of it. How Brett got the part is its own great little story. He was a writer on the show, first and foremost, and that was going to be it.
Okay.
But he had to leave early because he was the showrunner on his own show on AMC called Soulmates, and so he left, with still like a month or so left of the writers' room. By that point, we were starting to cast some of the characters. We'd cast Higgins, we'd cast Rebecca, and we're starting to look at Roy's. And Roy, we can get into this separately, is based on a real Roy. This guy Roy Keane, this legendary hardscrabble midfielder from Ireland. And we were seeing guys in that sort of macho, vein.
Yes.
On his way out the door, Brett filmed himself doing the Roy audition scenes. And he sent it to Bill Lawrence with the most humble, typically Brett, apologetic email. Like, hey, I think I could play Roy. I filmed these scenes. If you think it's pardon the language, but that's what he said. We never have to talk about it again. Mm-hmm. And they watched them that day before I got there. I was late for whatever reason. When I got in, there was a buzz about the place. I'm like, what's happening? Brett filmed himself as Roy. And I mean, truly, I was like, oh, yeah? Good for him. Fire it up. And it was so clear right away. Like, oh, no.
That's him.
Brett's Roy.
Yeah.
This is great. So...
Yeah, he had the gravelly voice down too. He had that whole thing down too.
It was not yet as gravelly as it would become.
Okay.
Yeah,
Right.
But he had the timing, he had the pain, he had the comedy. He's a very, very talented man, and he just happens to have finally found the exact right part to bring that out to the world.
Because there's a Twitter account. Do you run at the AFC Richmond Twitter account too?
No, I have nothing to do with it.
Okay, because there's I think there's some actual stuff, original stuff that he's in. I've seen it on this Twitter account. Maybe is it on the Lasso account? Maybe I'm missing it. Where he's playing Roy Kent and he's doing interviews and they're outtakes and hilarious. They're brilliant.
They have us film. They'll take us on a Sunday during filming.
Yeah.
And film the next 8 months worth of social media content. That's stuff they write for us, and then it starts rolling out now.
It really is brilliant, all of it, and just makes you think. When the credits roll, you sometimes sit there and you're disappointed the show's over, but it leaves you there thinking about stuff. It truly is amazing. Brendan Hunt here, again, co-creator, co-writer, actor in the most decorated comedy that we've ever seen from the Emmys. Most Emmy-winning comedy for the second year in a row. Breaking records with 4 total wins, including Emmys for Outstanding Comedy Series Lead Actor, which is Jason, and Brett Goldstein in directing. Ted Lasso, the newest season and final season, is on Apple TV Plus, which you can see right here on Roku, right here on the Rich Eisen Show. So do you sometimes sit around, stunned that this has happened?
Oh, yeah, all the time. This is crazy. This is absolutely crazy. And the thing is, right now we're going on these press tours, and there's all this stuff going on. And we went to the White House, and I
saw that.
You were grand marshaled NASCAR, and
okay, let's take that one at a time. From the Oval Office is one thing. Okay, that had to be wild for you.
Oh
right?
yeah, I mean, good heavens, they had us there because they watched the show and they liked the show, which is already cool enough. But
right.
To talk about mental health a bit and continue to destigmatize mental health. And but I thought we were gonna just walk in, sit down, get some pictures. Mental health, huh? Tick, tick, tick. All right, bye everybody.
Right.
We were in there for 45 minutes, and then the whole cast came in, and then he's showing us, pictures of his whole family.
Biden's taking you on a tour of the Oval Office.
Yeah, and it's like, oh, this desk here, this was JFK's desk, and there's a trap door in the front. There's a famous picture of JFK Jr. coming out of it. Hey, Jason's daughter Daisy, would you like to go through there? Yes. She comes running through. Hannah, would you like to sit at the desk? Madam Chairwoman. She's, just very, very generous, very cool. And the whole time you're like, why am I here? Oh, because I helped write a show about soccer.
I had a similar experience when George Bush W was in the White House, and they had me call the play-by-play for the White House T-ball games that they used to have on the South Lawn there. And I remember they were walking me through the script about what to say and when to say it before the T-ball game happened. And there was on a card, they say, read this when the president and the first lady come walking down from the White House. And it just said, ladies and gentlemen, the president of the United States, George W. Bush, and Mrs. Laura Bush. And I'm like, I don't need that card, but thank you. I appreciate it. I'm a professional. I do this for a living.
Oh, boy.
And then I'm sitting there, and it's now time, and we just sang the national anthem, and it's Hail to the Chief is being played. And I look up, and here comes George W. Bush and Laura Bush. And I'm like, oh, where the hell is that card? I went looking for it because I just panicked because it's an out-of-body experience to be there with the president of the United States. Unbelievable.
Yeah.
And you had that experience as well. How does that compare to NASCAR? Being well, I mean, so in all seriousness, so you were an official marshal for which NASCAR event?
For the Austin race this last weekend.
Okay.
I mean, between the two experiences, I wore different outfits.
Okay.
But golly, at NASCAR, everyone's so nice. People are incredibly friendly every step of the way, and like grateful that we were there and everything. And it was pretty cool. Like I'm not a NASCAR guy historically, you know, being raised in Chicago, I'm not even much of a car guy. I'm a public transportation guy.
Nice.
But I've been, I don't want to open up this can of worms, but like for the last 15 years, I've been in this 10-sport fantasy league that a friend of mine invented. I've stopped playing other fantasy games because it's the best fantasy game there is.
What?
It's called the All Sports Fantasy League.
What is it?
All Sports Fantasy League, 10 sports. And anyway, NASCAR is one of the sports.
Okay.
So now, I need this in my life. I like know things about NASCAR, and I will turn on races every once in a while and be like, "Come on, Kozlowski!" You know, get that pit stop.
There you are, by the way. We found the photo. Look at you.
Yeah, man, I went for it.
Yes, you did. Look at
you should see the pants. But yeah, it was a real good time.
All right. Now, what do you mean? What do you mean a 10-sport fantasy league?
It's a 10-sport fantasy league.
What is this? What are you talking about?
It's called the All Sports Fantasy League.
I understand what it's called. I don't understand it.
It's the 4 major pro sports: college football, college basketball, soccer, golf, tennis, and NASCAR. A friend of mine who is a genius. He's a lawyer, and he's a hilarious improviser, and he's a creator of games. Invented it, and you don't have individual players from the team sports. You just have the teams. So you don't care how Rodgers does. You care if the Jets win. See, I'm getting used to Rodgers and the Jets.
I appreciate you getting, ahead of the game.
Thank you. And it goes from August to July. And
but what are the points? Like, what do you mean? Like,
the scoring system is proprietary, Rich. I can't get into that, but it's the best.
So would you play this, Chris? You'd be in on that's got to be.
It's funny. I did get offered to play something similar.
Like what are you talking
about? Like a month ago, and I kind of passed. It was like a little too much.
So you have to choose a team, and then points are associated with how well they do. And so you could crush it in the NFL, but your NASCAR team is dragging you down.
Yeah.
The golf might be middling, and so does it when it all comes down to it, Brendan Hunt? Truly give an idea of who knows the most about sports, who wins it. Or there's still so much luck involved.
It can to a degree, but like no one quite knows enough about all 10.
Of course.
But like, one of the bonuses you can get is which I shoot for every year. It's my strategy. There's many ways to win the ASFL, but I go the balanced bonus strategy where you're trying to have the highest, lowest score of any particular sport, which would suggest a wider breadth of knowledge, But yeah, we have a draft every year. It's a keeper league.
Keeper league? Would you keep a team in a sport?
Yeah. And I have some decisions to make coming up the end of the season.
Like what? What do you got?
Right now I've got the Celtics and the Suns. You can only keep one from a given sport. I'll probably trade one of them before the end of the season for a keeper upgrade somewhere else. I got the Celtics and Yankees. I got Man U, and then probably Kozlowski because NASCAR very scarce.
Yes,
very scarce. Texas football. Manning's coming.
Okay.
Think about that.
Who do you have in golf? Who's your?
Oh, well, very controversial because of the LIV situation.
Yeah.
You're not able to get, if you have an LIV golfer, you're not going to get points for the regular events because we don't do LIV, we do PGA.
Okay.
But now that they're all eligible.
So the LIV players have been banned from your fantasy league as well? Like that's reality. That's not fantasy. Really?
I think it's more of like not wanting to open up that can of worms for the scoring system, but... But now that they're all in all the majors, and here come the majors starting next month.
Yes.
I have Koepka and DeChambeau, and we'll see how they do.
Okay. And what's the prize?
Winning.
Oh, come on! Not just pride.
Pride.
Really?
Well, you also get a jacket. You get a master style jacket.
Okay.
We share a team, Rich.
It's like holy moly! Like, can somebody come in?
Like how open?
What do you got?
I mean, he did recently start the ASFL too. Because he had a lot of questions in the lower division.
An expansive? Can you be relegated?
You can be relegated. There are divisions in the main ASFL. You can be relegated, from the Premier League to the championship. It's full on. It's the best.
That is full. I would say it's full on.
That is full on.
That is wild, man. Oh, boy. Well, keep us in mind.
We'll do.
Ted Lasso, again, new episodes airing on Wednesday. Only on Apple TV Plus. Brendan Hunt, you are the best, man. Your show is amazing, and I'm watching it with my wife. We're watching it together. loving it, like soaking in every second, knowing the end is coming, and we are lamenting that. And I know the final episode will just be rife with can't believe this is the last time we're pressing play on something that's new with Ted Lasso. Is this truly the end?
We really don't know.
What do you mean you don't know?
We don't know. Like this will be the end of this story that we set out to tell. You know, as I said, like we always saw it as a 3-piece thing, and we've always been aiming toward that. And like we didn't know we would get a second season. You know,
right.
Like we went out on a streaming service that didn't exist. So we weren't particularly ambitious with this, you know, and we're going to finish the story we set out to tell, but it was never in our calculus the way people have responded to the show.
Correct.
Like that's been obviously bonkers. So we are going to finish these, you know, this chunk of the story, and then we're taking a little break. And when the dust settles, we'll come back around. It's possible we'll continue. It's possible there will be spinoffs. It's possible none of that will happen. But truly, honestly, everything is on the table right now. But we will take a break.
I'm thrilled to hear that. And we have Jason Sudeikis coming in Monday. I will ask him the same darn question, but I'll tell him what I'm telling you now. Like, please keep doing it. And I know that this requires a certain amount of brain power, brain equity, and it just doesn't just fall out of your skulls collectively or you individually. But it's too good to stop. It is too good to stop, and I'd love to see. Whatever the next venture could be, and I hope to see more of it. And you, certainly, not only because I want to see more Ted Lasso, I cannot wait to hear the next chapter of the ASFL.
ASFL.
And that stands for
All Sports Fantasy League.
Okay.
Rush Howell, Esquire.
Rush Howell, Esquire. That's this is the brains behind the operation.
Yes, and many other things, but particularly this.
Okay.
Also, how do we get an advance copy of Trent Crimm's book that he's working on? I would actually read this book.
See, I mean,
and I know I'm not alone.
That may actually exist. Why wouldn't
I mean, he's definitely writing that book. That book, does not go away during the course of the season. But if I can zag a little bit on that question, just to talk a little bit about Grant Wahl, the great Grant Wahl, who died during the World Cup, and the great U.S. soccer writer. When we were putting the storyline together of Trent, embedding with the team, and particularly following this superstar as Zava arrives, who we've met in the last couple episodes, I reached out to Grant, who I've never met, but I've been reading for decades. And hey, you did the Beckham experiment, where he embedded with the LA Galaxy when they had David Beckham coming. And, we were talking about it in the writer's room and just have a few questions for you. Like, would you be able to just, take a moment and answer these? We'd be much thanks from us. Like John Feinstein's people were like, you're paying money. You're paying money before you get these answers. I'm like, oh, gosh, okay, fine. I'm sure it wasn't communicated to him very accurately. But Grant Wahl came back with paragraphs of answers within 2 days. He was incredibly generous with his experiences. And it was really, really great and pretty helpful. And so we have a little nod to him coming up in this next episode. And this was when he was still with us. We did not know, obviously, what was going to come to pass. So one great thing about the Trent Crimm thing is it brought, Grant Wahl to us a bit more. He came to Richmond. We hung out for a day.
Is that right?
Yeah.
No kidding.
Yeah, 2 months before the World Cup.
And so this character's arc is going to have his DNA in it, pretty much.
Yeah, a little bit.
Beautiful.
Brendan, you mentioned Zava. Just wondering, what was the inspiration behind that character? Because my first instinct was Zlatan. I just assumed that that's who you were shooting for with Zava's character.
Well, the lawyers have told me to tell you, TJ, that Zava is a composite of many of the vivid and wonderful characters that populate the world of football. Was Zlatan one inspiration? Sure. But Zlatan's incredible. Zlatan.
No question.
Google him, people. Google his goals are incredible. His quotes are incredible. And if we even have 1/10 of him in Zava, then
Zava's incredible
we're
already.
Happy.
Well, I cannot wait to see where he goes.
The way sometimes Zlatan can exit a pitch is of interest as well for anybody who's out there Googling. And I guess, and as we've established, one of them is not Jason Sudeikis because he doesn't know how to work that. So we've established one of many things in this interview, including the fact that I'd love to have you back anytime.
Oh,
what a pleasure.
Yeah, man.
Thank you for everything and the enjoyment you've given me and my wife and everybody else who watches this show in advance of more. Brendan Hunt, check out at Brendan Hunting, right? At Twitter and on Instagram. And, of course, Ted Lasso every single Wednesday, only on Apple TV Plus, which is available right here on Roku. You are right. We did need to see the pants. Wow. Catch the Rich Eisen Show every single day on the Roku channel, 12 to 3 Eastern, for free.